Welcome, Bob Maxwell. Welcome.
Great.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
The purpose of this conversation is to articulate some of the life lessons we've learned as elders and to communicate those to younger people, whether they like it or not, whether they'll listen to it or not. So, you want to talk a little bit about your career and some of your life experience before I hone in on your elder wisdom?
I can if you think that's what I should do.
Sure, go for it.
Okay. Let's see. I had basically two careers, one behind the wheel of a truck and one basically running treatment centers for substance abuse addiction treatment centers. I born in the South, raised in the suburbs of Seattle, and chose to live in New Mexico because I was tired of getting wet with rain. I have two children, two daughters, and I have six granddaughters. One set of family lives in San Diego, and one set of family lives in San Antonio. My mother is in independent living in San Antonio. I was there with her recently, and I complained about being old, and one of her people said, "You can't be old." And I said, "Why can't I be old?" They said, "Because your mother's still alive. If your mother's still alive, you can't be old yet." I said, "Okay, I'm not old then." So now I probably don't fit into this because I'm officially not old.
Try again, Bob. You know what? You're not an orphan.
Well, that's true.
Okay, that's the only meaning of having a mother alive is you're not an orphan.
Oh,
Okay, but you're not actively working, so you are technically retired.
I retired in 2011, and then I got called to kind of bail out a treatment center. A former employee had taken over, and I spent a year doing that in 2014, and then I have been meaningfully retired since. Haven't made a dime.
You know, they banned me from working there, but they sold the company, and the new people don't have that restriction, and they wanted to hire me.
Well, the only requirement I had for being hired with that company is that I don't hire Greg Gould. I said, "Okay, I've heard the story,"
And I've outlasted them.
and they didn't like it that I had bought a bed for you to nap during your lunch hour.
Well, it's a requirement.
That's what I said. You know, it's a single bed, for God's sakes. It didn't cost that much.
It's the principle.
That's what I said.
So, Bob, when you were a kid, you moved around a lot.
Nah, 3 times.
You told me a story about your dad and moving around that I want to dig into.
You want to dig into my dad? Dad died in 2019 at age of 90. Dad was one of the original, what I've studied to be original hobos. And you guys are old enough to know the term hobo that rode the rails. And that was, Dad left home at 12, dropped out of school at 4th grade because there wasn't enough food in the family, and hit the rails and worked and traveled for the rest of his days, really. And when he was 21, he went back to Arkansas, where he was kind of raised, and met my mother. And he credits her with him being able to stay alive because I gave him a reason to settle down. He had gotten so used to being on the road. But my dad, the thing he gave me, that he didn't know he was doing it. I didn't know he was doing it. And until not too all that long ago, I was talking to people about in the step work that I've been doing that for a long time. Fear of financial insecurity is one of the steps, or one of the things that we look at. My dad, without knowing it, by being as low as you can go, I guess, learned the art of abundance. And he passed on to me that there's plenty. Now, I've never made that much money. I don't have that much money. And yet he gave me the gift of knowing that there's abundance in life, and that what you got is more than enough. And is that the story you were after?
No,
Good. We're on a roll.
The story I was after revolved around taking risks and taking chances. And when moving to new places,
I got it. Yeah, well, that is the one thing that I've tried to pass on recently to some younger people. Two things, and I'll talk about the other one later. But one time in 2007, I've been kind of a mountaineer my life. I've climbed Mount Rainier 3 times. Almost all of the major volcanoes on the West Coast I've climbed. And I was leading a climb. I was leading a rope team of a climb up Mount Rainier, and there was 4 of us on the rope team, and you're all roped up, and you got crampons on, and you're going on ice glaciers, and you're crossing snow bridges into crevasses you can't see the bottom of. It just, a hole in the ice as wide as this room disappears. And so I'm going along this, and we summit it, and we get back down, and I noticed of the 3 people on my team, one of them was pretty quiet, but one of the members on my team had the time of their life. And they said, this is the hike. They said, they'll still, if you see him on the streets of Albuquerque, because I took some Albuquerqueans to climb Mount Rainier. To this day, he'll tell you that was one of the highlights of his life. Tied next to him, 12, 15 feet behind him, was a person who was having the hardest ordeal of their life. They had never tried something like that. They whined, they cried, they had a horrible time. They made it because you're roped up. You're not going to get on the rope, son. You're tied on. You just keep coming. And it dawned on me that and Dad did this a lot without knowing that he did it. He would tackle anything. My dad would tackle anything because he had. He'd get off a rail car in Texas and he'd say, I need money. I need a job. What can you do? What have you got? He'd go do it. He was pretty talented that way. So what it came to me, and the point that I try and pass on to anybody, is the only difference those 2 people had between the time of your life and the worst ordeal of your life is your attitude. The attitude that you go into something with, maintain, and come out with will tell the difference between what can be even a good marriage, bad marriage, a good job, a bad job. People that's been in jobs that aren't that entertaining. And some of them, it's just, they're there and they're into it and everything's cool. And other ones is, I can't wait to get the hell out of here. And that, to me, that's the lesson I wish somebody, and Dad did try, but I was pretty involved in other things. To get across is that the difference between an adventure and an ordeal is your attitude. Is that the one you wanted?
absolutely.
I thought so. So I got another one that I thought to myself, what would I say? And I remembered when my oldest daughter got married, probably 25 years ago now. Did the whole thing. It was her second marriage. The first one was, and my oldest daughter is the hero child. She's got 3 degrees, 2 bachelors and a master's. She's now teaching. Her husband has a master's. Their oldest daughter, or their oldest child, has just finished her first year at San Diego State, blah, blah, blah. At their wedding, when it come time to do the toast, everybody toasted them, and I was last. And I said, I got up to do the toast, good luck and all of that. And I said, and there was probably 100 people there. I said, I'm not talking to you guys. Nothing personal. I'm going to talk to you 2. And my daughter and son-in-law was like sitting there, and I stood right across the table from them. And I said, you know what I've learned? Your mother and I, and my ex-wife was there, and we were getting along, made what I feel to be, she may feel different, one real mistake in our marriage, in our life. And that mistake was, it's going to be better when we get married. Oh, it's going to be better when we get a house. It's going to be better when you're born, I said to my daughter. It's going to be better when your sister's born. It's going to be better when I get the next job. It's going to be better. And we did that for our entire marriage. Never stopping to say, how is it now? Never thought about it. You know, you'd have what you got, you take what you got, and yet I was always looking at the next thing, and it's going to be better, and it's going to be better. I said, if you two can do anything for me, stop and enjoy yourselves. Stop and see that you got it made right now. No matter what happens, you got it made. Again, life is abundant if you'll just do it. And they looked at me like, what are you talking about? Everybody, the old people in the room went, oh yeah, but they kind of missed it.
I consider that a seed that you planted. And they may not have been receptive to the seed, but the seed was planted.
Well, they've done a pretty good job of living a life right now. My son-in-law has, there's I don't know if you know, the Emmys give out local Emmys, not just nationwide Emmys. They give out local Emmys for a lot of documentaries and such. My son-in-law has, I think he said at the last count, 40 Emmys that he's done with documentaries. He took over a department of Palomar College in California and turned it into a film documentary study. And so he takes students and they make documentaries. And then the students move on and he takes another group of students and they've won 40 local Emmys.
Bravo.
Yeah.
And that's your influence.
He's a pretty sharp kid. He probably didn't need much from me.
Uh-huh. This is the guy that it would glazed over when you gave him the touch?
Well, I think he was just shocked that I would actually use his wedding to do that.
Uh-huh.
You know, my timing's always been a little off. The people in the room that know me would know that. But when else? And I said, when else am I going to get a chance to tell you two what I think?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and especially in front of an audience.
Well, and you can't get up and leave. You're stuck here. That'll teach them.
What do you tell your granddaughters?
Oh man, my granddaughters, the new generation is a challenge. I had an old friend in Seattle who died way too young of pancreatic cancer in the last 5 years that believed that when we can no longer keep up with the technology or with what's going on in our society, that we could be in trouble, that it might be time to leave the planet, the way he said it. And I may be in trouble because I can't keep up with what's going on with my grandchildren. My granddaughters will disappear into their room and come down and get food, not sit down and have dinner, take their food back up and be totally in their devices, totally. And they've got every device made, you know. Now, two of them, one's in college, one's going into college. The two younger ones are pretty specially challenged with some emotional issues, mental issues. The other two granddaughters are real all-stars. They're the ones in California. And they'll listen to Grandpa, but not much. You know, they've got their life, and every now and then I'll get a shot in at them. But I've never been able to just sit down with any of the six of them and say, you know,
with the program.
This is you know, the way it is. But you know, what I've learned, I don't know the way it is. I know the way it was, but I don't know the way it is. And for me to assume that I know the way it is for them, their generation, and their journey on this planet would be pretty arrogant. I barely remember the way it was. You know, we had a great discussion at lunch yesterday about generational, the difference between the guys in front of 10 years in front of me that was in high school in the middle 50s, the guys my age in high school in the 60s, and the guys that were sitting there that were in high school in the 70s, and then another group in the 80s. And what music we refer to, what automobiles, what, you know, I mean, everything in our past changed in those 10-year sections, it seems. And so I don't assume that I love my grandchildren. I do the best I can for them, but mostly I leave them alone. Mostly I let them find their own way. And every now and then they'll ask something, but not very often.
It's a wrap.
Okay.